At first, I didn't think it was real. I woke up to this blinding light, and I was transported to another place. Pluto TV! Then I heard a voice.
Come with me if you want to live.
There were thousands of movies and shows, and they were all free.
The truth is ours.
It's just so beautiful.
On Pluto TV, free streaming of Terminator 2, Fringe, Arrow, The 100, and The X-Files may cause excitement, loss of sleep, and sudden belief in extraterrestrials. No credit cards or alien encounters necessary. Pluto TV. Stream now, pay never.
This is an iHeart podcast. Guaranteed human.
It's an Olympics you'll never forget. Prime time in Milan. The moments.
Chloe Kim with the gold medal flex.
The stars.
Ilya Malinin.
Out of this world.
The spectacle from beautiful northern Italy with very special guests every night of the Olympics. Experience the world's biggest show. Prime time in Milan. Tonight, 8/7 Central on NBC and Peacock.
The big game commercials are basically must-see TV. This year, Elf Cosmetics went all out with an absurdly funny telenovela called Melissa. It stars Melissa McCarthy, Nicholas Gonzalez, Itati Cantoral, and Elf Glow Reviver Lip Oil. The Elf Glow Reviver Lip Oil is an ultra-glossy tinted lip oil that nourishes, hydrates, and enhances your lips' natural color.
Watch the full episode of their new Elf novela on soyunbaño.com.
Ever wonder why so many people regain weight after stopping a GLP-1? Up to 40% of the weight lost can come from lean muscle. This weakens the body, slows metabolism, and makes it easier to put the pounds back on, creating a cycle of dependency. Prolon's 5-day fasting-mimicking diet offers a drug-free way to maintain results and support long-term metabolic health. In just 5 days, it activates fasting pathways to burn fat, protect muscle, and rejuvenate cells, all while letting you enjoy real food. Get 15% off plus a $40 bonus gift when you subscribe at prolonlife.com/iHeart. That's prolonlife.com/iHeart.
The Middle is supported by Journalism Funding Partners, a nonprofit organization striving to increase the sustainability of local journalism by building connections between donors and news organizations. More information on how you can support The Middle at listentothemiddle.com. Welcome to The Middle. I'm Jeremy Hobson, joined as always by our house DJ Tolliver. And Tolliver, you have been moonlighting as one of the top shows on TV right now, Abbott Elementary. Your song, Booyah was in the season finale this week.
Yeah, man. And you know what? I don't have television, so I had to stay up till 2 a.m. to watch it on Hulu, but it was so worth it. My mom's excited, you know?
That is awesome. You don't have a television. Okay, fact we learned about Tolliver. Well, anybody who wants to see you do that live can come to our live show in Waterbury, Connecticut on June 3rd. Ticket info at listentothemiddle.com. So a lot of people are spending this weekend barbecuing, getting together with family and friends, maybe checking out a sale somewhere or just taking a day off of work. But for others, Memorial Day is a very serious observance of Americans who have made the ultimate sacrifice for the country. There have been more than 1.3 million American casualties of war in the history of the United States, including more than 7,000 since the beginning of the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. So what resonance does that sacrifice have with you, whether you have lost a loved one or not? What does Memorial Day mean to you? That is our question this hour. Tolliver, how can people reach us?
You can call us at 8444-MIDDLE. That's 844-464-3353, or write to us at listentothemiddle.com.
And before we introduce our panel, last week we asked what would restore your trust in the media. We heard a lot of opinions and some suggestions. Listen to some of the voicemails that came in.
This is Shelley calling from Prairie Village, Kansas.
My name is Timmy Tayo Coker from Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
My name is Ellen, and I'm calling from Chicago, Illinois.
This is Lonnie in Nashville. One way of getting people to trust things more is some sort of funded bipartisan or multifaceted organization that sort of gave ratings or a grade to any kind of outlet. Maybe over time it could be something that people trust.
One of the concerns I have, particularly about NPR, is they use words that give the impression of a feeling that's against a person or concept. That makes you not want to trust what you're listening to.
If media just went into just giving the facts to educate, that would make me trust whatever media outlet a lot more.
I think the reason people don't trust the media anymore stems from one primary reason. Politics. Most people just believe what they hear.
Well, thanks to everyone who called in. So now to our topic this hour, Memorial Day. It was first observed after the Civil War and became a federal holiday in 1971. So what does it mean to you? And do you think about Americans who have made the ultimate sacrifice for the country? Let's meet our panel. David Shulkin is a former Secretary of Veterans Affairs under former President Trump, and prior to that, he was Undersecretary of Veterans Affairs under former President Obama. Secretary Shulkin, welcome to The Middle.
Glad to be here today.
And also joining us, Vickie Castro, a past national officer with American Gold Star Mothers. Her son Jonathan died in the Iraq War in 2004. Vickie, great to have you on The Middle, and our condolences to you on this Memorial Day.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Well, your son, as we said, was killed in 2004. It was by a suicide bomber along with 21 others. What memory comes to mind first of him 20 years later now?
Yesterday would have been his 41st birthday. It's been 20 years, and I still miss him and grieve for him every minute of every day. But it depends. You know, that question, you can ask me that question at any given time, and it'll always be something different. But with you reminding me of how he was killed by a suicide bomber. I remember our last conversation. He had called from home. He called home from Iraq 18 hours before he was killed. And I remember the very last thing he said to me, and that was, "Mom, remember, I have absolutely no intention of dying in a foreign country."
Wow. Secretary Shulkin, as you hear that, and I'm sure you've heard stories like that from military families, from veterans, do you think that most Americans have an understanding of that pain, that sacrifice that Vickie Castro is bringing up there?
Well, I don't think so, Jeremy. And the reason I say that is because I know that before I was asked to come to Washington by President Obama at the time, I had a pretty active life as CEO of a large hospital system and very active social life. And I have to say that in my social circles, I'm not even sure that I knew people who had children in the military. And I soon began to realize when I got into the role in the Department of Veteran Affairs that it was less than 1% of our sons and daughters that serve in our military, and that you often will see that it's multiple members of a family. It's often a son and a daughter or a nephew and a niece, and the families and the communities in the military communities are tight and they know each other and they're ingrained in their social networks. And so you begin to start having people that have a lot of contact with people like Vickie and, you know, her network. And then you have other social networks that have no contact. And that sort of brings this lack of understanding of how the sacrifice falls on a really disproportionate percentage of American families. And to me, as secretary, my greatest honor was to spend time with those families and hear about how they've not only continued to serve the country in the ways that they do, but the amazing stories and sacrifices and memories that they have of those who have served.
Vickie, as we said, you work with the group American Gold Star Mothers. What does your network say, or what do people who haven't lost loved ones in war do you think need to understand about the experience of you and the others in that group?
Oh my goodness. I don't know that I want anybody to be able to, well, maybe understand, but I don't want anybody to live what we live, right? Yeah. Our membership requirement is that you have lost a loved one in the line of service. And what our group does and what we are is we're a support to each other. And we are mothers that have come to the realization that our grieving process is helped by volunteerism. And most of our volunteer acts go towards military families, be it the VA, the USO. I mean, there's so many, the DAV, any of those groups. We volunteer and work with our military families, and that helps us through our grieving process.
Yeah. Let's get to the phones, and Mario, who's in Oak Park, Illinois. Mario, welcome to the middle. What do you think? What does Memorial Day mean to you?
Memorial Day, what it means to me is I think of my 7 friends that got killed with me when I was with them. We were together out there in Iraq. They were shot down with a heat-seeking missile. And boy, I tell you, that was a bad day. And, you know, what makes it even worse, they got shot down. The Marines who went out there to go rescue them got blown up. I think 3 or 4 of them died. It was a bad day. So that's what it means to me. That's what it means to me. My 7 comrades, and 2 of them, it was their first mission, and 5 of them, it was their last. And we would always talk about it. Hey, you want to go on your last one? I said, I hope this was my last one, you know? And that's what it means to me. It's painful. It's painful, but I count my blessings, you know? I count my blessings. And I have white shoe polish, and throughout my window of my van, I put, you know, I try to fit their names, or I try to put a reference to where someone can look it up as to, you know, these specific 7, you know, Marines who died. Yeah, that's what it means to me.
Hey, Mario, let me ask you, you know, first of all, thank you for your service. But since you've come back, do you feel like you've been treated well by your fellow citizens, or well enough by your fellow citizens?
I am glad you asked me that. Let me tell you right now, the VA system is incredible. Incredible. If anyone who ever talks bad or questions the VA system, I always say, wait a minute, because I'm there often, you know, with the hearing and the asthma and stuff like that. Incredible. As soon as I walk in, anything I need, give me your last 4 of your social, good to go. Anything. I mean, anything you could want. Housing, rehab, anything. Or if you're sick. Yeah, it's been great. Coming back, everybody else is cool too. Yeah, you know, they're nice to us.
Yeah. Mario, thank you so much for your call. And David Shulkin, you know, I didn't know whether he was going to say what he was going to say about the VA there, but he had nice words for the VA.
Yeah. Well, look, the VA cares for, you know, more than 10 million people like Mario, and not everybody is going to have Mario's experience. But to me, getting out and talking to veterans like Mario and hearing about how important the VA is to them and the support that they get from the VA is really what motivated me to fight to make this a better system and to make sure that it wasn't privatized. It didn't get into that partisan politics that Washington so often does, that the VA can't really become a political entity.
We're going to get to that later on. Again, our number is 844-4-MIDDLE. That's 844-464-3353. Tolliver, as we said, Americans have been observing Memorial Day officially since just after the Civil War. It used to be called Decoration Day.
Yeah, and about half of all Americans who have died in war died fighting the Civil War. Then Vice President Lyndon Johnson spoke on Memorial Day in 1963 from Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, 100 years after the Battle of Gettysburg.
We honor them now as we join on this Memorial Day of 1963 in a prayer for permanent peace in the world and the fulfillment of our hopes for universal freedom and justice.
It was really interesting in finding that audio, Tolliver, to think that 1963 was exactly 100 years after the Battle of Gettysburg, which was in 1863.
Yeah.
It reminds you how recent the Civil War really was. I think we think of it as like way, way, way long ago, but it actually, like, you know, for them, that was 100 years. So anyway, we'll be back with more calls in a minute on The Middle.
It's an Olympics you'll never forget. Prime time in Milan. The moments.
Chloe Kim with the gold medal flex.
The stars.
Ilya Malinin.
Out of this world.
The spectacle from beautiful northern Italy. with very special guests every night of the Olympics. Experience the world's biggest show. Prime time in Milan, tonight 8/7 Central on NBC and Peacock.
Welcome to the A Building. I'm Hans Charles.
I'm Menelik Lumumba. It's 1969. Malcolm X and Martin Luther King Jr. had both been assassinated, and Black America was at a breaking point. Rioting and protests broke out on an unprecedented scale.
In Atlanta, Georgia, at Martin's alma mater, Morehouse College, the students had their own protest. It featured two prominent figures in Black history, Martin Luther King Sr. and a young student, Samuel L. Jackson.
To be in what we really thought was a revolution. I mean, people were dying.
1968, the murder of Dr. King, which traumatized everyone.
The FBI had a role in the murder of a Black Panther leader in Chicago.
This story is about protest. It echoes in today's world far more than it should, and it will blow your mind.
Listen to the A Building on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This is Ryder Strong, and I have a new podcast called The Red Weather.
It was many and many a year ago in a kingdom by the sea.
In 1995, my neighbor, Anna Trainer, disappeared from a commune.
It was hard to wrap your head around. It was nature and trees and praying and drugs.
So no, I am not your guru.
And back then, I lied to my parents, I lied to police, I lied to everybody.
There were years, Ryder, where I could not say your name.
I've decided to go back to my hometown in Northern California, interview my friends, family, talk to police, journalists, whomever I can, to try to find out what actually happened.
Isn't it a little bit weird that they obsess over hippies in the woods and not the obvious boyfriend?
They have had this case for 30 years.
I'll teach you sons of to come around here and my wife. Boom, boom.
This is The Red Weather. Listen to The Red Weather on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This is The Middle. I'm Jeremy Hobson. If you're just tuning in, The Middle is a national call-in show. We're focused on elevating voices from the middle, geographically, politically, and philosophically, or maybe you just want to meet in the middle. This hour, we're asking you, what does Memorial Day mean to you? Tolliver, what's the number to call in?
It's 8444-MIDDLE. That's 844-464-3353. You can also write to us at listentothemiddle.com or on social media.
I'm joined by former Secretary of Veterans Affairs David Shulkin and Gold Star mother Vickie Castro, who lost her son in the Iraq War. Before we get back to the phones, Secretary Shulkin, I suppose one of the most important reasons for someone to actually think about those who died in war on Memorial Day is so that they fully consider the cost of war when the U.S. considers getting involved in a war.
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, to me, Memorial Day is about recognizing and remembering the sacrifices. But along with that, Jeremy, comes exactly what you said. And too often, the decision to go to war is not considered with the full costs, because those costs often take decades to show up. And seeing that right now, the largest number of veterans that the VA cares for are actually Vietnam veterans who are now average age of 78 years old. But the VA has responsibility for them until the very end. And then, of course, even making sure that they're buried with a proper ceremony and dignity. The VA maintains national cemeteries throughout the country for that purpose.
Mm-hmm. Vickie Castro, after your son died, you actually demonstrated against the Iraq War. What do you think about war these days? Do you find that there are times when it is justified?
It's hard, looking at history, because I studied history and some of the things, during the war and especially during the Holocaust and everything to step in. I wouldn't say that that was wrong. But that being said, for the most part, nobody wins a war. Just somebody loses less, or I don't know, how you score a win. I don't think that war is the answer for the most part. War is just the result of failing to communicate in a way that you can, get along. I don't know how guns solve the answer. It's not going to get us to an answer at gunpoint.
Let's go to Thomas, who is joining us from Baker, Louisiana. Thomas, welcome to The Middle. Go ahead.
Hi, thanks for having me. I've been thinking about the question for the past couple hours, and my first thought is the answer to what does the Memorial Day mean to me. And bluntly, as a retail employee, it basically means that my store closes 2.5 hours early. I'm fortunate enough; I don't have any killed in action family members or friends or anything like that. But thinking on my answer there, it had me think of another point, and that's how unusual it is that this country, generally speaking, has a culture where we really care for our military personnel and also being respectful to the dead. And given this, that a lot of businesses just use it as a day to start selling off a bunch of meaningless stuff that it's like, hey, come get our crap for 75% off. That I could understand that being disrespectful to people that have lost someone.
Yeah. Thomas, thank you for that call. Vickie Castro, let me ask you, do you feel disrespected at all when you see Memorial Day sales?
Yes, especially that, all of the banners, it's like a big celebration, as if this is supposed to be a day of celebration, which it's not. It's a day of observance to remember and to acknowledge the sacrifices that are being made in your name. Whether you're aware of it or not, these sacrifices are made. Now, it would help a little bit if all of these stores that had all these big sales would allocate their income from the day to veteran services in some capacity. Donate it to Fisher House or the DAV or any of those things as part of their hoopla for the day.
Yeah.
But it just, most of it is just so celebratory is the thing. So I'm not really keen on that.
Yeah. Edie is with us from Westchester, Pennsylvania. Edie, welcome to The Middle. Go ahead.
Thank you. Vickie Castro, I am so sorry. I thank you for having an amazing son who was willing to go and defend my freedom and my right to enjoy my afternoon and my children. I'm so sorry. And I really think that Memorial Day is supposed to be a day of remembrance. And I totally agree with these crazy sales, and it's become like Project First Day of Summer. And I just find it very distasteful and dishonorable for our veterans. And I'm the mother of a Marine, mother-in-law of a Marine, so I have so much respect for these people because without them, we could not have our day-to-day joys of getting in our car, going to the grocery store, going to work. And again, Mrs. Castro, I'm so sorry. And you are, I'm cognizant of these losses, and I just wish people would be more aware of it. And absolutely I agree with Mrs. Castro, too. Anybody who's open on Memorial Day, those proceeds should be going to our veterans.
Edie, thank you so much for that call. Vickie Castro, I don't know if you want to respond there to Edie.
No. I appreciate when people acknowledge my son's sacrifice and my family's loss. He was my only child, and it built a big hole in my life. And it does, it's a balm to know that people acknowledge and remember, because if his life isn't remembered, then oh my goodness, that's what hurts.
One of the things, David Shulkin, that we heard from Edie there was about somebody sacrificing for our freedom in this country, and there are now wars that the U.S. has fought that, as you look back on them, 2020 hindsight, many people would say that war was not about our freedom. Like, let's talk about Vietnam for a second. You know, you could make the case that this is, communism versus capitalism, or these big things are going on in the world. But many people would look at Vietnam and say that was a war that we didn't need to get involved in the United States. How does that affect, how military veterans are treated and how we think about those who've died in war?
Well, it's a good question. I think as you speak to our Vietnam veterans in particular, because of the domestic controversy over that exact issue, Jeremy, when our Vietnam veterans got back, they were not welcomed as heroes. Many people remember when Vietnam veterans actually stepped off the planes and onto American soil for the first time. Some of them were spat upon and others were booed, and that went with them for a long time. A lot of Vietnam veterans to this day still don't trust the government because of the way that they were treated. Now, I think as we heard earlier from Mario, fortunately in our more recent conflicts, our veterans and our military come back to a hero's welcome. But you have to understand every conflict has to be interpreted in the context of the political situation in the country, and yet everyone who raises their hand and puts their life at risk is serving their country and listening to the commander-in-chief, and they really should not be exposed to these types of political divisions. And so I think that's part of our commitment that we need to make, which is not to judge those who are really just serving the country and
following
to treat
orders
them with the respect. Yeah.
Right. Let's go to Joseph, who's in Joseph, who is in High Ridge, Missouri. Joseph, welcome to the middle. Go ahead.
Hi, thanks for taking my call. On Memorial Day, we all need to reflect on the people who fight and die and put their lives on the line on behalf of all the rest of us, whether they're conscripted or especially the ones who volunteer and choose to do that. But unfortunately, I think about, I had classmates, one who died in Iraq, my uncle died in Vietnam, I had a great uncle who died in World War II. And unfortunately, when I talk to friends who are veterans and my grandfather in World War II especially, what I think of on Memorial Day, part of it is the great, profound sense of betrayal of our political leadership to our veterans and the people they asked to die on all the rest of it and their behalf to keep them in power. I mean, the lives surrounding Iraq and Vietnam, or my grandfather especially, by the end of his life, he said he wouldn't have fought if he could see what had happened, the primrose path that we had been led down with the inversion of the morality he grew up with, the decay of our cities, the mass immigration, swamping his working class friends. I mean, he had his British pensioner friends who were in London, and they fought so that they wouldn't be speaking German. And by the end of their lives, the native British were a minority in London. And there was a book, The Unknown Soldiers, by Nicholas Pringle, about a decade ago, where he solicited thoughts on the direction their country had gone. And this was in the UK, and almost to there was a few people who were happy with modern conveniences, but almost one person, and these were men and women in the auxiliaries.
So Joseph, I think we've got it there. That basically not happy with the politics here at home. I thank you for that call, and I want to go to Wade, who is in South Holland, Illinois. Wade, welcome to the middle. Go ahead.
Hi, thanks for taking my call. First, I just want to give my condolences to your guest and all others, of course, who've lost their sons and daughters. To me, Memorial Day is, of course, about remembering those that have, died in service to the country, but I get a lot of aggravation, besides all the commercialism and it being more about first day of summer, but about how so many people want to give well wishes and thanks to services to the veterans. And you ask any veteran, especially a combat veteran, and it is not their holiday. I remember my uncle who served in Vietnam told a story once about how some woman said, "Oh, happy Memorial Day, blah, blah, blah." And, and he just very brusquely told her, "Not my holiday." You know, no thanks anyway, no thought, nothing, just not my holiday. And you just know he was thinking of I don't know how many of his fellow soldiers that he watched die in Cu Chi. So,
yeah. Wade, thank you for that.
That's something I think about.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that call. Vickie Castro, your thoughts, not my holiday.
Yeah, that's very true. I know I've been to DC frequently for Rolling Thunder. They don't do it. They have another thing now, but and a lot of times I would see people, you know, always thank you for your service, thank you for your service, and I would let them know, and a lot of times the veterans would let them know, this isn't my day. Yeah. This isn't my day. You know, we have Veterans Day, and as far as I'm concerned, you know, thank a veteran for their service 364 days a year. Just not Memorial Day.
Just not Memorial Day, right? Mm-hmm. Tolliver, I know a lot of comments are coming in online.
Yeah, we got a ton of them. Dennis in Connecticut writes, Memorial Day is the time to remember your neighbor when you were growing up who never said a word about his military experiences until you find out as a 17-year-old he was in the D-Day invasion and through to the Battle of the Bulge in the European theater. Alex in Massachusetts writes, for Gold Star families, every day is Memorial Day. I've had the honor of interacting with several who have lost loved ones in battle. They try to keep their memories alive in ways big and small. They visit their graves. They start foundations that award scholarships. They tell stories about those sons and daughters, brothers and sisters, husbands or wives, fathers and mothers. Take a minute to think about their sacrifice on Monday.
Yeah, great. And you can write to us, by the way, at listentothemiddle.com. You can also call us at 844-4MIDDLE. That is 844-464-3353. Cliff is in New Orleans. Hi, Cliff. Welcome to the Middle.
Hi there. What Memorial Day means for me growing up, my father was a World War II combat vet, and he served in the Italian theater. He also served in Anzio. Anyway, he said he was soon after they landed at Anzio, they were just taking a break, a lunch break, and there was a small little stream, and he just wanted to be by himself and just eat his lunch by himself, and four of his buddies were on the other side of the small stream, and right in the middle of their eating, a German 88 shell came in and took all four of them out.
Wow.
And he wasn't that far away, but he was unscathed, and he just wanted to say that that's what war was like. And he said that's what it was like when you fight for your country. And he just wanted to infer what war is like, the horrors of war, as well as what it was like to fight for America and what it stood for. And, you know, we could evolve from there and think. But every day...
we've heard from so many people that have been talking about military families. Your dad was in World War II. Did you join the armed forces?
I did not.
What was that a choice that you made? Like, did you think about doing it and decide not to?
Well, I wasn't thinking of, if we're going to go on politics, I wasn't thinking about that. When I was of age, there was a thing called Vietnam.
Right.
And my dad, I wasn't thinking about going there. My dad did not think that was a quote unquote just war.
Yeah.
And he said, I will help you, but I had no idea about amnesty or any of that kind of thing. At the end of the day, my number was like 212, and I was in college, so I never did sign up. So it never became a reality. But no, my dad was not a military family. I mean, it was not a military.
You weren't in the military. Cliff, thank you so much for that. And I'm seeing that we've got an email in at listentothemiddle.com. Memorial Day, this is from Amy. Memorial Day is for those who died in service to our country and those who passed from their service, i.e. suicide, as my brother, Corporal Byro, would say every year. Veterans Day is for those still among the living. Since his passing from suicide, I've met other siblings who are now trying to live without their brother or sister. Siblings are often called the silent, overlooked grievers. We're going to get to that in a moment. But Tolliver, as we've been hearing, Memorial Day is a very serious, important day, but there are also a lot of sales.
There are, yeah. Well, I'm not sure. Let me check real quick.
Highlight your Memorial Day weekend with a special cookout and stock up on everything you need at Winn-Dixie.
Monday only. It's Mattress Discounters Memorial Day Triple Bonus Sale. All our mattress sets are on sale, including our lowest price.
Get to Waterbed Gallery Superstore's Sunday, Monday Memorial Day sale. We really cut prices to the bone during this once-a-year event. Waterbed start at only $79.
Waterbeds. Remember those?
Yeah.
Actually, you know what, Tolliver? My parents had a waterbed.
Oh, okay. You know what? I've been apartment hunting, and they all say no water beds, and I'm like, who has a water bed?
Because it starts leaking. That's what happens. It starts leaking. Okay, we'll be back with more in a minute on The Middle.
It's an Olympics you'll never forget. Prime time in Milan. The moments.
Chloe Kim with the gold medal flex.
The stars.
Ilya Malinin. Out of this world.
The spectacle from beautiful northern Italy with very special guests every night of the Olympics. Experience the world's biggest show. Prime time in Milan, tonight 8/7 Central on NBC and Peacock.
Welcome to the A Building. I'm Hans Charles.
I'm Menelik Lumumba. It's 1969. Malcolm X and Martin Luther King Jr. had both been assassinated, and Black America was at a breaking point. Rioting and protests broke out on an unprecedented scale.
In Atlanta, Georgia, at Martin's alma mater, Morehouse College, the students had their own protest. It featured two prominent figures in Black history, Martin Luther King Sr. and a young student, Samuel L. Jackson.
To be in what we really thought was a revolution. I mean, people were dying.
1968, the murder of Dr. King, which traumatized everyone.
The FBI had a role in the murder of a Black Panther leader in Chicago.
This story is about protest. It echoes in today's world far more than it should, and it will blow your mind.
Listen to the A Building on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This is Ryder Strong, and I have a new podcast called The Red Weather.
It was many and many a year ago in a kingdom by the sea.
In 1995, my neighbor, Anna Trainer, disappeared from a commune.
It was hard to wrap your head around. It was nature and trees and praying and drugs.
So no, I am not your guru.
And back then, I lied to my parents, I lied to police, I lied to everybody.
There were years, Ryder, where I could not say your name.
I've decided to go back to my hometown in Northern California, interview my friends, family, talk to police, journalists, whomever I can, to try to find out what actually happened.
Isn't it a little bit weird that they obsess over hippies in the woods and not the obvious boyfriend?
They have had this case for 30 years.
I'll teach you sons of to come round here with my wife. Boom, boom.
This is The Red Weather. Listen to The Red Weather on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This is The Middle. I'm Jeremy Hobson. We're asking you this hour, what does Memorial Day mean to you? You can call us at 844-4MIDDLE. That's 844-464-3353. Or you can reach out at listentothemiddle.com. I'm joined by former Secretary of Veterans Affairs, David Shulkin, and Gold Star mother, Vickie Castro. Before we get back to the phones, David Shulkin, we heard just a moment ago that email about suicide. I mentioned earlier that about 7,000 Americans have died or did die in the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, but more than 30,000 have died in that time period since 9/11 from suicide, service members dying after they come back from suicide. How do you remember those people in the context of Memorial Day?
Well, I think you've said it correctly that, as we discussed before, that the war doesn't end or the conflict doesn't end when people come back home. And in fact, we're seeing many more people taking their own life than losing it on the battlefield. And that's why the number one priority for the Department of Veteran Affairs is to help prevent veteran suicide. And even with all the efforts that are extended there, and there are some really important programs, last year, suicides in this country among veterans went up 11.6%. So this is a national crisis. It is one that we do not have under control. We need to do a lot more. There are a lot of people out there who need help, and we're going to need to continue to work at this for quite some time.
Vickie Castro, as you know, Secretary Shulkin served in both the Trump and Obama administration. Do you find that the VA or the way that we think about veterans is apolitical, or does it feel political? It changes based on the administration.
That depends on what level. The military itself is supposed to be apolitical. But you go on to any military base and into their, mess halls and whatever, and a lot of them don't turn the news off of Fox News. And, how political is that? So I do find that there are politics involved. Ideally, there wouldn't be, but it is. It seeps through. I think a lot of people in position in the VA try to make it not be about politics, but so much of the funding for the VA is tied up in politics every year. Mm-hmm. They passed the PACT Act, but then now they're trying to chip away at it. So, yeah, because the politics hold the purse strings. So, unfortunately, it is.
Secretary Shulkin, what do you think about that?
I think Vickie has an amazingly objective insight into this. I went into this without any allegiance to a political party. I was confirmed 100-0 2 times by the U.S. Senate. In fact, the last cabinet member ever to get 100-0. And I will say all I did as secretary is deal with politics. I tried very hard to shield the department from it. I tried very hard to make sure that I was making the right decisions that I felt for those that served. But all around me was a swirl of politics, and it made it very, very challenging. So I think Vickie's comments are exactly on target.
Let's go to the phones and Janice, who's in Fort Collins, Colorado. Janice, welcome to the middle. Go ahead.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
I can hear you fine. Go ahead.
Okay. All right. I absolutely love and respect and appreciate all those who have given their lives in service to our country. My concern is that many have given their lives in wars that were not, in my opinion, necessary. And I've been listening, and others have referenced Vietnam. I certainly will say Iraq. My father served in World War II. My brother served in Vietnam. I visited Normandy and felt immense appreciation and respect for those who were buried there. But we need to honor our military and our fallen by not getting into wars that are not necessary.
Janice, thank you. And let me take that to Vickie Castro. You came back, I've seen videos of you speaking at anti-Iraq war rallies. So you obviously feel similarly there.
Well, especially Iraq. I know that even my son, he told me, he says, "Mom, don't worry, we're not going into Iraq." And I'm like, "Son, I hear those war drums." And he says, "No, Mom, we're not going into Iraq because of 3 reasons." He says, number one, Saddam Hussein's a bad guy, but he's our bad guy. And if we take him out, what comes to power may be worse than what is there. Number two, that we have them contained in Iraq. We don't need to go in there. And number 3, it's about Afghanistan. And that would take the eyes off of Afghanistan. So when we went into Iraq, he was very frustrated. Of course, I was very frustrated too. I didn't think we belonged in Iraq. Everything that brought us into Iraq was a lie. Everything that kept us in Iraq was a lie. And how many thousands of our, bravest and brightest lost their lives in the sands of Iraq?
So how do you think about your son's heroism? And I know that you've talked about what exactly happened there with him and the more than 20 others who died in that attack. His heroism in a war that you believe was, and that many Americans believe was not worth fighting in the first place.
Because he was a soldier first. He was a soldier and he was going to follow orders and do the mission. But here's the thing, people have to understand. His mission was to keep himself and his battle buddies alive. Period. No politics, no anything, just stay alive keep my battle buddies alive. And that's what he was, and that's what he was trained to do.
Let's go to Michael, who is in Arlington, Massachusetts. Michael, welcome to the middle. Go ahead.
Hi. Well, I'm commander of the local VFW here, and what Memorial Day, one of the things we do in preparation for Memorial Day, last weekend and the weekend before last, we and some wonderful volunteers, including kids from the local high school, we put flags in at every single grave at the big Mount Pleasant Cemetery, which is a very old cemetery going back to colonial times that's in the middle of Arlington. And it was a huge effort, and we went and double-checked, and we found that they didn't miss a grave. And there were hundreds and hundreds of graves to put flags on. So it was just a great thing, really.
That's wonderful. It's really moving actually to see the pictures of people like you putting the flags on the graves on Memorial Day.
Well, don't forget, I'm a vet, so it's like, I'm saluting my own. But the fact is, so many people that are not veterans volunteered and did it. And I remember one guy said to me at the end, he was dropping me off at Cafe Nero for my reward for being so good. I was going to have pastry and coffee. And as he shook my hand, he said, I went there as a duty because I'm an American citizen. But when we finished up, I suddenly realized what a pleasure it had been. And that's the generosity of spirit I met time and time again the last 2 weekends.
Well, thank you so much, Michael, for calling in. Really appreciate that. And good luck this weekend. Let's get to another one. Karen, who is in Cherokee, North Carolina. Karen, welcome to the middle.
Yes, my grandfather was in World War I, and my father was in Hawaii when it was bombed by the Japanese. He was 17 years old when he went to war, and they both came home scarred, I'm sure. It was very difficult for them in their private lives when they came home to get used to civilian life again, but also the people who lose their life, you can give nothing more valuable than your life for this country, and it's given for us to live in freedom. I've been in a communist country. I know the difference, and this is a beautiful country, and I hate the idea that we had a president who had no respect for our dead or our wounded. Those are the most precious people we have. They gave everything they had.
Karen, thank you so much for that call. David Shulkin, it's just amazing to hear from so many people who have these personal connections. Obviously, there are so many Americans out there like Vickie and people who are serving the armed forces, who are veterans of the armed forces, but you don't necessarily run into them and talk to them in everyday life all over the place. And it's so nice to hear from so many today.
I think that's true. And one of the things that's come up a couple times during our time together is that wherever I go, and I often will see people responding to emergencies like hurricanes and natural disasters, you see people helping other people. It often turns out those are veterans, or veterans volunteer for things more than others in the community. They vote more than others. These are people who really believe in our country and want to make it a better place. And I'm so grateful every time I meet a family like Vickie's and others around the country.
Yeah, Vickie, how much of your time do you spend now, this is 20 years later, working with groups like American Gold Star Mothers or with fellow military families and veterans?
Well, it comes and goes. It depends on how well my health is holding up, and what position I'm in. When I was on the national board, it was a full-time job, just a full-time job, straight across the board. Now, I've retired from teaching, and so I have more free time. And I'm going to say I've scaled back a bit, but I do like to still stay in touch and do volunteer work at the USOs and the VA and some of the, we put on little barbecues and stuff for veterans groups. So time-wise, I don't know anymore. Like I said, I've scaled back a bit, but a lot of that has to do with health issues than other things.
Let's go to Kate, who's in Fort Collins, Colorado. Kate, welcome to the middle. Go ahead.
Hi. I wanted to comment on what somebody said earlier about most of our soldiers coming from about 1% of American families. That was true with my husband's family. His father served in World War I, two of his brothers in World War II, a brother in Korea, and then the youngest two in Vietnam. And they did it out of a sense of duty, but also because they were drafted, whereas somebody who was in college or somebody that had a job that was deemed more important than what they were doing didn't have to go. And I think most affluent families don't even consider their sons going into the military. And the people in Congress and most of them haven't served, and it seems like it's only a certain segment of the population that really does serve this country. And my husband is still suffering extreme PTSD from what he experienced as a Marine in Vietnam. And, those people aren't really celebrated, not on Memorial Day and not on Veterans Day, really. And those are meaningless to my husband. And but I just think it should be more equal.
Yeah.
That
Kate, it's a great point. I'm so glad you brought it up. And Secretary Shulkin, this is something I wanted to get to, which is that there's a class situation in the military. There are a lot of Americans who are on the lower income that do go and serve, and then as she said, affluent people maybe don't have that much of a connection to the wars that we fight in this country.
I think that's absolutely true. And one of the things that I believe, when you look at the state of our country right now and the fact that we're probably more divided than we've been, ever since I can remember, I believe there should be a national year of service that is mandatory for young people. And one of the reasons I believe that, you don't have to, in what I believe a year of service would be in the military. You could volunteer to help in all sorts of ways around this country with all of our social problems. But one of the reasons I believe that's so important and our way forward is because when you come together and you're forced to deal with people who come from different cultures and different socioeconomic backgrounds and different geographies of the country, you bond and you get to listen and learn and, become closer to other people. And that brings us together as a country. So I think that's a very true statement. And I think we need to really do something about it.
Tolliver, what else is coming in online?
Yeah, John in Rockford writes, as Memorial Day approaches, I think back on the wars this country waged a half-century ago against the peoples of Vietnam, Cambodia, and Laos. Across this country, there are memorials to the Americans who lost their lives during those conflicts. But what of the 3 million innocents murdered in those countries who were so cruelly ravaged, none of whom have ever done you or me any other harm? Let's remember and mourn them all. George writes, as someone who faced the draft in the late 60s, I feel terrible for those who went to fight and those who lost their lives given the wrongness of that war, which has become clearer over time, and the lessons not learned which led to future wars. I protested that war and knew that going into Iraq for weapons of mass destruction, which did not exist, was wrong. It just goes on and on. Yeah.
Again, you can write to us. Yeah, listentothemiddle.com. Vickie Castro, we're running out of time, but I do want to give you the last word here. Just any advice to Americans from your point of view as we remember those who have died in war in this country? Your thoughts.
Well, I was a school teacher for many years, and I kept a picture of my son there on the wall. And on Memorial Day, as they were going for their Memorial weekend, I would remind them, I understand that you're excited because you have an extra day off of school. It says, but I want you to at least focus I'm not asking you to spend the weekend mourning. That's not what we're expecting. Just set aside a certain period of time to think about and remember those who have died in the line of service and the sacrifices that have been made, because each one of those lives lost had a family attached to it. And the ripple effect from each death is significant. And just to take a few minutes, even if it's just, like a moment of silence, please. And let's remember each and every one of them.
Well, I want to thank my guests. That was Gold Star Mother Vickie Castro. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
And Secretary of Veterans Affairs under the Trump administration and before that under the Obama administration, David Shulkin. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you as well.
And Tolliver, next week we're going to be talking about a war that the U.S. is involved in but is not directly fighting, and that would be the war in Israel and Gaza.
Yeah, and we've heard so much about the protests in this country. So what we want to know is whether the U.S. role in the war is something that will affect your vote this November. You can call us at 8444-MIDDLE. That's 844-464-3353, or write in at listentothemiddle.com.
And while you're there, you can sign up for our weekly newsletter. The Middle is brought to you by Long Nook Media, distributed by Illinois Public Media in Urbana, Illinois, and produced by Joanne Jennings, Harrison Patino, Danny Alexander, and John Barth. Our intern is Annika Deschler. Our technical director is Jason Croft. Our theme music was composed by Andrew Haig. Thanks also to Nashville Public Radio, iHeartMedia, and the more than 410 public radio stations that are making it possible for people across the country to listen to The Middle. I'm Jeremy Hobson. I'll talk to you next week.
Over the last couple years, didn't we learn that the folding chair was invented by Black people because of what happened in Alabama?
The Montgomery Brawl.
This Black History Month, the podcast Selective Ignorance with Mandy B unpacks Black history and culture with comedy, clarity, and conversations that shake the status quo. The Crown Act in New York was signed in July of 2019, and that is a bill that was passed to prohibit discrimination based on hairstyles associated with race. To hear this and more, listen to Selective Ignorance with Mandy B from the Black Effect Podcast Network on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
1969. Malcolm and Martin are gone. America is in crisis. And at Morehouse College, the students make their move.
These students, including a young Samuel L. Jackson, locked up the members of the Board of Trustees, including Martin Luther King Sr. It's the true story of protest and rebellion in Black American history that you'll never forget. I'm Hans Charles.
I'm Menelik Lumumba.
Listen to The A Building on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
When segregation was a law, one mysterious Black club owner, Charlie Fitzgerald, had his own rules.
Segregation in the day, integration at night.
It was like stepping on another world.
Was he a businessman, a criminal, a hero?
Charlie was an example of power. They had to crush him.
Charlie's Place, from Atlas Obscura and Visit Myrtle Beach. Listen to Charlie's Place on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This is an iHeart podcast. Guaranteed Human.